What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? One of my college classmates wrecked his Range Rover over winter break and came back in an Aston Martin. In college I wrecked my 1998 Toyota and came back in a 1998 Toyota with the front bumper missing. Not so bad if you went to college in 1999. In middle school we were asked to draw our homes for some assignment and hand it in at the end of class. A popular, extremely wealthy kid that sat behind me raised his hand and smugly asked the teacher for another sheet of paper because he couldn't draw it all on one page. His friends just snickered, but I was cringing. Even at 12 I remember thinking it was such a snobby thing to say. Bragging about your parents' money is honestly just sad. I still see it in my 30s. For some people, the best thing about them is their parents. Reminds me of a girl in the class who said, "We're not rich, we only own 5 houses. If you own more than 1 house you're rich, relatively speaking." Face it, I had a girl like that in French class high school. We had to draw and label our house floor plan in Francaise, and Kat raised her hand and asks how many floors because she kind of lives in a mansion. For other purposes Kat was pretty cool, but she bragged about her wealth a lot. In Spanish she had us draw our dream home, which I think in theory was a better assignment, but I wanted mine to just be all hallways. Which is technically a maze, I think. Worked with this kid who was a good kid, but completely disconnected from financial reality for most people. Had just moved out west from another state and was trying to get on like a normal adult. He went to buy a new car and was shocked that they couldn't just bill his dad for it, since they didn't know him. He ordered a bottle of wine at a restaurant and the sommelier said certainly. So then the sommelier whispered, "Just for your knowledge, sir, the bottle is $700. He looked straight at him and asked, "Is that a lot?" The sommelier honestly didn't know how to answer. Good kid, and he got a lot better, but he just didn't know. Once he casually told his mom he needed some help with bills and she deposited $20,000 into his account. "Hey ma'am, I need a new cell pH. $1 million. Got it." I feel bad for him in a way. He doesn't seem like a douche at all, just genuinely unaware from having a rich family. I think it's probably a good thing that he was able to grow up in a family where money isn't an issue, even if it meant that he was unaware of the value of money. I hope nobody gave him much shit for it. Went to school with a crazy rich kid. His parents divorced and each decided to buy his love. Mommy owned a real estate agency, so she got him a license and spoon-fed him enough sales for a 6-figure income. The dad then bought him a magazine. Yes, the dad bought a magazine for his 24-year-old cokehead son to run. Worked about as well as you'd imagine. Holy shot bro, that's some terrible parenting there. But a great movie. The Boof of Wall Street. Its star role will go to none other than actor Shia LaBeouf. I have a cousin like that. Her parents have always just bought whatever job she's kind of interested in. In high school, they opened a Dairy Queen so she would have a place for a first job. They bought her a clothing store and an interior design business home decor store. And now that she's got kids and less time to work, they bought like 4 condos for her to use as Airbnb properties. The only good thing is when she gets bored, her stepbrother takes over and finds qualified people to run the businesses. So other people are ending up with nice jobs. I knew someone whose dad bought her a bar because she wanted to get into booking music shows at the venue. Everyone I knew who also knew her was shocked, mostly because she wasn't exactly the managerial type. I'm pretty sure the bar closed and changed hands less than a year later. I work for a dentist and her son is a spoiled brat. He was at the office one day because she had to bring him to an appointment later that day. He got bored and went out wandering around some of the local shops. He came back a little while later and without any preamble walked up to her and said, "Give me $80. She asked him what it was for and he just repeated himself and she gave it to him. My fiance's cousin. He managed to crash 4 cars while still in high school because his father would replace them. When he moved on to college, he got kicked out of several apartments for owning a dog when they weren't permitted. He told me he didn't care though, since his father also funded his continuous stream of new housing. From what I last heard, his father is now paying for his long-standing cocaine habit. Do these parents actually care about their kids? I don't understand how out of touch as a parent you have to be to keep buying your child brand new vehicles every time they crash one due to him/her being reckless. How do you not know to punish them? Or make them work until they pay it off or something? I just do not get how you cannot understand this. A guy looked at my $2,000 beta car in college and commented that it must have been really cheap and guessed $15,000. My fraternity brother's monthly allowance of $2,000 was cancelled from his parents because he made a few F's. He then called his aunt for a separate allowance. That's not an allowance, that's a salary. Man, I work in wealth management and have clients that pay their adult children anywhere from $10 to $20K a month in allowance that they manage to blow. By the way, one of the dads referred to it as helping his daughter avoid mixing with too many proles. Edit. For all the people asking how to make enough money to gift it away to your worthless Chads and Beckys, the answer is usually family related at least 50-60% of the time. Here's a rough blueprint for a few of my non-connected, self-made clients. If you're young enough, get into a target school that gets recruited by big financial firms and take a shot at investment banking or management consulting. Best money you can reasonably make at 23 years old. Slave away as a monkey analyst for as long as you can stand. But live small and don't blow it on hookers and booger sugar in the 3 hours a day you're not in the office. Unlike 90% of your co-workers. When you can't take it anymore, try and make the jump to venture or hedge funds. Buy side. Repeat, living well within your means. At 30 years old, you should have enough seed money saved up to play a small private equity role. Throw it at large cap blue chip stocks, or fund your own startup. I have a decent number of clients with a net worth about 50 million who did variations of this that came from very little. Someone's sister got $600 shoes, so the parents got the other kid's shoes of the same price to stop their complaining. I mean, this is a common problem for any family. One kid gets one thing and the other sibling throws a tantrum because they also want that thing. Only difference being that it's usually cheap shit instead of $600 shoes. I knew a girl whose allowance was $90 a day. She got into trouble so they cut it to $90 a week. How old was she? Assuming this was high school, how did she manage to spend $30K a year? Knew this one guy at my college who didn't understand why everybody is so worked up about student loans. I remember him saying something along the lines of, why don't people just pay the tuition up front? He was also quite sheltered. My friend literally throws away his change because he hates holding coins. Doesn't matter if it's 99 cents, he'll throw it away. That shit adds up. Went to HS with this insufferably spoiled kid. Family had a couch in their home's elevator. And classical European sculpture. This was in the US. Kid talked down to about the less fortunate on a regular basis. Once made fun of me for picking a coin up off the ground. Depression era mentality. See a penny, pick it up, then all day you'll have good luck. Richie Rich mentality. See a penny, let it be. Who knows who touched it before me? In high school a kid was bragging that he got in his third fender bender in his old car. 3 years old. That his parents gave him but he hated, so his parents were buying him an entirely new, current year, car to incentivize him to drive better. Hey son, you wrecked your new car? Well, fine. We're getting you a new one hoping you'll drive better, genius. This kid back in high school was whining, I mean literally whimpering, that he had to wait something like 6 weeks for his custom built BMW to come over from Germany. If that was me, I'd be surprised it only took 6 weeks to custom build a car and ship it from another country. I don't really know anything about cars, that just seems like a short time period to custom build and ship such a large item. I've waited longer than for 99p shit on eBay. The Nintendo DS just came out. It was like $150 and my family lived in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 20-year-old car that was always breaking down. We ate those cheap bags of Walmart beans and rice for months at one point. I expressed the desire to own one after my friend said he had one and I got, why can't your parents just buy you one? I don't get it, it's dirt cheap. He didn't want to be my friend after that anymore. Literally avoided me and made fun of me for the rest of the year behind my back. I'm still salty about it. Maybe not rich kid syndrome, but middle class kid syndrome. My mom's friend used to buy new clothes each season and throw out the old ones. she had to be taught by her husband to save them for the next year. So my best friend's wife teaches at a ritzy $40,000 per year private school. As in, $40,000 a year for elementary and middle school. I think the HS is like $50,000 plus. Well, she teaches 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember. And she said she always goes around the class after the summer break and asks them what they did over the summer, and she particularly remembers one kid complaining about how much his summer sucked because he was stuck on his parents' yacht all summer and they didn't even take it to anywhere cool, just Italy. I worked at a Starbucks and we hired a new guy, who I was training. At one point, I had to show him how to clean the restrooms. I grabbed the bleach and hand him a pair of gloves and he looks at me in disgust and says, "We don't have a maid to clean the bathrooms?" He quit the next day, lol. I honestly wonder how people like that even ended up getting a job in the first place. Like, what did they think they'd be doing? They've been in plenty of coffee shops and think it would be cool to brew the coffees and chat with the hot customers. They have no idea of the actual work involved. I won't say rich kid, but definitely spoiled brat who thought he was rich. Befriended him in 5th grade over our interest in the UGR trading card game. First time I hung out at his place, I noticed just how littered with stuff his room was. Some even unopened. I showed him some rare card that I had recently pulled from a pack. He got super jealous and angry that I wouldn't trade or sell it to him. He immediately got up and walked over to the family computer and booted up a site where you could buy cards and various other toys and such. Completely ignoring having me over, he is now on an online shopping spree adding stuff to the cart. After adding a few things, he yells, "Where's the credit card?" and immediately his older sister comes running up the stairs to yell, "Kyle, Mom said no more buying stuff online," and closes the website and shuts off the computer. Kyle then proceeds to have a crying tantrum on the floor and I'm just standing there over him in shock at what's happening and how he's acting. I slowly stopped hanging out with him until completely avoiding him as his temperament got worse. Kid wasn't even rich either, if I remember correctly. Both of his parents were cops. My brother works at a rehab center for the kids of wealthy parents. He's always got stories, but the one that sticks with me the most was a kid who was in trouble with the law and doing rehab before his court appearances. You know, to look like a better person and hopefully the judge would go easier on him. He was mopey one day and my brother asks him what's wrong. The kid starts talking about how tough the whole experience has been for him. How it's been so hard on his family that his parents had to sell his house to pay for his rehab. My brother felt sympathetic and says, "Damn, that sucks that your parents had to sell their house over this." To which the kid corrected him, "No, they kept their house. They had to sell mine." Apparently there was this 15-year-old girl who was going on an exotic vacation to some Pacific island or something. But her favorite show was on TV the day of their flight, and she really wanted to see it. Her parents delayed the flight so that she could watch an episode of her favorite show. My stepsis blew a Paris vacation because she didn't bother to get her passport renewed. A week later her sugar daddy bought her a vacation to Mexico for a week. She missed that one too. Also a year earlier her mom got her a 7-day cruise that she missed because her mom didn't bother to check when her spring break was. It keeps me up at night thinking about all the money that has been wasted to get her out of the country. Went to a destination wedding in Mexico resort. Rich kids rented a golf cart, tore through the streets and flipped the cart, injuring people and causing a huge commotion and traffic jam. A Mexican lady comes out and begins to scold them for their behavior. "You wouldn't act this way at home." Rich kid responds, "I promise you we do." It was the earnestness of his reply that got me. This girl would always brag about how she's been to every continent except Antarctica and that she's visited so many countries. Then she wondered why people called her the rich kid and insisted she wasn't rich. Lots of rich people deny it. They don't want to feel bad about their money, so they convince themselves they're middle class. She was probably just parroting her parents. One girl from my high school got breast implants for her 18th birthday. Her mom joined her as a mother-daughter bonding activity, followed by the daughter getting a brand new $90,000 Mercedes as a high school graduation gift. I think I saw that movie. And then the daughter's boyfriend comes over, right? I saw this one too. The daughter isn't home, but the mom says he can't wait there for her. Luckily the only rich kids I knew were the most outstandingly well-behaved boys I've ever met. I was a youth leader in a ministry for middle schoolers, and I think the worst it ever got was them being mildly disruptive at times. But these kids had a little half-sized basketball court in their basement, along with a basement the size of a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment, an arcade, a fully stocked second fridge. Don't even get me started on the house itself and the yard. This place easily would list at least as $1 million home. But they would share with all the kids in the group and never ever look down on anyone for not having money like them. These boys even helped me change a flat tire on my car because they felt it was useful to know how. They literally could probably afford a tow truck and a tire repair all in the same day if it ever happened to them. They were so well grounded that it made me feel like I was the spoiled brat of times. Rich kid I know brought $1,000 to the book fair in elementary school. Yay, $1,000, that's not a typo. I could absolutely survive on my own. My parents just pay for my food and house, but I pay for everything else. If I got a job I could pay for my food and house too, said at 18, in the middle of a discussion between two middle-class peers who were talking about saving money because they had to pay for their own college and living expenses. About 5 minutes prior to this conversation, both peers had ordered the cheap dinner options and declined a shopping trip later that night, while rich girl was talking non-stop about buying the best, most expensive souvenirs for her friends. Once tried working a regular person retail job and quit within a couple weeks as it just wasn't right and I didn't like it. We had actual responsibilities for the first time. Moved cross country for an 8-month education course where her parents pay food, rent, and school. They also gave her a debit card which replenishes up to $500 when it hits $50. She still posts Snapchats with captions of that broke person life over pictures of her getting Starbucks every day, and insists she could survive on her own. Constantly suggests the most expensive options for meals, activities, etc. and tax on things like we can just split the bill. I know you're saving, but it's just amount at least $50. You'll be fine, right? Then gets upset when people can't afford to spend time with her, or when someone dares to suggest that she helps cover costs. One of my friend's friends ended up paying for a night of food and entertainment. He'd go up before we got the bill and just pay. No matter how much we argued with him and tried to pay him back, wouldn't take it. Nice dude, bad bullerage. When I was in college, and in various groups that interacted with people with established careers, the people with careers, would do this for us. Not all the time. Just every now and then go cover everyone's tab for whatever outing we were at. Honestly, it taught me a lot more about sharing what I had with people than it made me feel like I was a poor college student. But it had a lot to do with the attitude. Most of the time, when it happened, they'd tell everyone good night, not make a scene, and do it behind our backs and leave. We'd go to close out and the waiter or waitress would be like, oh no, Bob or Mary always took care of it. Being humble college students and usually sometimes knowingly servers lent to us just tipping on the usual bill, and for a lot of these people it became an unspoken social agreement that they would cover us and we would pay it forward by making sure our regular servers got taken care of. This is pretty tame, but it's what I got. I used to work as an after-school babysitter for a loaded doctor couple with 2 kids. My job was mainly to pick up the younger kid from school and hang out till his parents got home. He was a good kid, but coddled and immature. He was in 5th or 6th grade at this point. Oftentimes he would not be at his classroom when I came to get him, and the school campus was huge. Different buildings, courtyards, playgrounds, the works. If he wasn't at his classroom I had to comb the whole campus, and he was rarely in the same place twice. He had a cell phone, but usually ignored its existence except for playing games on it in the car. The school was in the city and I had to park on the street. A couple of times I wound up with parking tickets because, despite having stuffed the meter with enough quarters to presumably result in ample time, the search for my charge would take much longer than anticipated. After a point, I mentioned this to him, calmly asking that he respect my time and stay in a set location so that I don't end up with a $25 ticket again. He looked at me with a good-natured shrug and said, well, that's not much. You can afford that. Sonny, your parents paid me $140 a week and I was in college. I know you live in a $1.40 million house and your dad buys you an expensive new toy every Sunday, but with the money they're forking over for your education, someone ought to have taught you the value of a dollar by now. But honestly, he was a nice kid. They moved away and I hope he's doing well. A 12-year-old family friend got an iPhone XS for his birthday, then deliberately shattered his iPhone 8. In high school a kid made fun of my mother, so I squared up ready to fight him, and he said, if you lay a finger on me I'll get my father's lawyer to sue your family for everything thief got, which made me laugh, call him a coward, and I went on with my life. Why did I read this in first year? Draco Malfoy's voice. My father will hear about this. I worked as a bouncer at a high-end nightclub. The biggest boner of a rich kid, straight out of Malibu's Most Wanted, gets a VIP booth and bottle service, racks up a massive bill trying to act like a baller. His credit card gets denied and he has to call his dad to come down at 1:30 AM because he can't order any more bottles. His dad comes down in his pajamas, obviously ashamed and furious at this douche of a kid. Ends up embarrassing the shit out of his kid in front of his whole group of friends. He takes the kid's keys and is about to leave when his kid makes some shitty comment and goes back in the club. The dad's about to walk away after he apologizes for his son when we offer to drag him out the rough way. He smiles and accepts. That kid hit every door and step on the way out. Not the best story, but was one of the most satisfying experiences working at that club.